Welcome back. This is MDawg, and it is an exciting day here in the Russian Fishing 4 world. I wanted to put together a little video here just trying to just verbally process with you about the news that we have received today about a new body of water that is being worked on in Russian Fishing 4. If you haven't already heard or read about it, then I will try to go into the very little detail that we have. I'll try to expound all that, show you where the posting was. But first, most importantly, how about this shirt? Let's just face it. My wife gives the best Valentine's Day gifts, right? So getting to show off the shirt for the first time. And but don't worry, when we finish this video, I'll take it right off. We won't get it dirty because tomorrow is stream night, right? So we got to wear it for our Wednesday night stream. And I hope to see you tomorrow on Twitch at MDawg Gaming. Okay, let's talk about the new announcement. First, let's see if we have any fish on. I am doing a little bellow fishing here. It looks like one of our rods does have a fish on. So I'm not going to go into any great detail about this fishing spot right now. I do not think you're here for the details about the bellow spot. But I did think it'd be fun to at least occasionally catch a fish while we're sitting here talking. So that's why we're doing this. All right, we're good. And once it gets to be evening, I'll just probably take them out of the water because, let's face it, we're not going to get anything. All right. With this announcement, the first thing I wanted to explain is that I'm going to be working. And let me go ahead and get my picture out of the way here. You don't need to see me. With this announcement, I'm going to be working under the assumption that fly fishing is coming with this new map. Now, that is complete speculation on my part, though there is some evidence to support that. This is the poster that, with the last update, was put up at Mosquito Lake. Now, I'm no expert on fly fishing, but I think that it's possible that these are reels, the Umba M24, M46, M68, that would support the theory that fly fishing is coming. I did hear someone say, that could be something else. It's not necessarily a fly fishing reel, but we're going to work under the assumption that that's what that is. The other thing that I think is important to remember is the update we got. December 31st, happy holidays. There's three things that I'm going to bring your attention back to really quickly here. The Russian Team 4 promises you to expand the geography of reservoirs. Now, that is a little bit of an awkward way of either saying we're coming out with new maps, right? Or the way it's worded, it almost makes me think like, okay, were they trying to say we're going to finally let you go on the other side of Bear Lake? I think the most likely scenario, though, is that that this is saying, hey, there's going to be some new maps this year, at least one, maybe more. We're going to add new fishing methods, right? And when we saw this immediately, the smart money is on fly fishing. Now, you could have also thought of sea fishing when you saw this. But new fishing methods, to me, that most likely pointed to fly fishing, which once again is why I'm going to work under the assumption that fly fishing is coming out with this next map. It also says develop other interesting features for the game. Who knows? That's the hardest one to look into and predict with any reasonable accuracy. Okay, but here's the news of the day. If you haven't heard already, let's just read through this real quick and then we'll dig a little deeper. All right. So the RF-14 presents to your attention a new reservoir, the famous Yama River. All right, more about the Yama River in a minute. Let's go to the first picture. The river originates on the spurs of the Olsky Plateau and flows into the Sea of Okhotsk, which, again, we'll look at that in a minute. It's believed that its name comes from the Koryak Vyam, which means river. The river is rich in fish. A large grayling lives here. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's a large grayling. Does that mean a new grayling species? It could, though it doesn't guarantee it. It could mean that one of the current grayling species is going to just be larger here. But I think it's safe to think that perhaps we're going to get another variation of the grayling. Many species enter it for spawning, among which are the Dolly Varden trout, the white-spotted char, chum, and the coho salmon. From what I've seen, chum is a type of salmon as well. we're going to come back to each of those species of fish because those are specifically mentioned for the update. Now, let's look at this map. The first picture, all right, obviously all we can see right now is a shoreline. Looks like it does wrap around. There's nothing that would keep you from walking this whole area, as best we can tell. And even in this first picture, certainly in the second picture, but even in the first picture, you're getting reminders of Belaya River, right? And more talk on Belaya coming up soon as well. If you're here for the fishing, I apologize. Mostly we're going to be talking, but hey, look, I'm catching a fish. It's getting late at night, and I only have 16 bleak left, so we're going to go ahead and put that down there and see what these other two do. Let's see if there's a fish on right now. I don't know what I just said, but Siri thought I was talking to her. Okay, so, I don't know that there's a whole lot else we can read into it. There's some things that are kind of hard to distinguish back here. I don't see anything that makes me think there's a path necessarily. It looks to me like these are just the woods. What's this right here? I don't know. We could break down this photo and get really deep into the minutia, but only thing that's safe to say is it looks like we have a fair amount of bank to walk. This either reminds you of Belaya or maybe even parts of Tunguska when you see this, okay? Now, the second and last picture is, holy cow, Belaya. Now, why do you think of Belaya? Mostly because of the tents, right? Because that's in Belaya. That's how you buy your tackle, sell your fish, go to the cafe, do all of those things. And so these tents look very familiar. The only thing we're missing is just, random kayaks sitting on the side that we can't use. A lot of this type of wood, down trees, we've seen in both pictures. Those looks like they're just going to be spread out. Now, if you ask me, I think it's possible that this part of the map is at the top of this part of the map. And again, to me, it looks like there's some kind of structure, walkway, building, or something right there. But it's just hard to tell. But I think basically, if you think of this as the beginning of the map, and then you just walk up north of here, that may or may not be north, directionally up from here, it looks like maybe you get to this part. Don't you think that the shore kind of lines up in the same way? Similar looking trees, perhaps. Now, I could be way off. Now, in this map, though, you do see another side. And so I'm really hoping that there will be boats. I want to talk a little bit about Belaya River and why it fell flat when it first came out for me. One of those reasons was you could see the kayaks, but you couldn't get in them. It felt very confined. At that point in the game's development, when Belaya hit, it just felt small and confined and like it was missing something. So the rest of this says, coming soon, watch the news for the latest updates. So what does that mean? We don't know. Now, in the past, there's been messages like, hey, come look over the developer's shoulders and see what they're working on next. When the verbiage was that way, that might have been kind of a clue of like, hey, we're not anywhere near finishing this. It's got a ways to go, but we just wanted to give you a sneak peek. No verbiage like that in this. So it says coming soon. I mean, I think based on my long experience with RF4, my speculation would be within the next month or two. I mean, that again, I'm just pulling that out of my tail, but I mean, that's just my guess, right? Okay, so not a whole lot else to glean from this. Let's go ahead and dig a little deeper on the locations and fish species that were specifically mentioned. First, the Dolly Varden trout. Now, if you want to Google search these yourself and kind of look at their bait preferences and exact sizes and everything, that's fine. Go ahead. I've done that a little bit. I just really wanted to show you some pictures, right? Dolly Varden trout, white spotted char, a lot of variation in what these can look like. Some of them looks like they get really large. Chumfish. This is one of the salmon variants, as best I can tell. Again, looks like there's some size on some of these. To me, it looks like we're kind of the Dolly Varden trout, white spotted char, and then I would think this is maybe even a little bigger. But I don't know. I haven't gone deep in looking at like average size and stuff. And then finally the coho salmon. Now to me, this looks like, could this be the Cory char of the Yama River? I mean, I'm just saying this might be maybe a little bit more rare species. There's some real pretty color variants in some of these fish. Again, even larger size, at least first impression from looking at some of these pictures. Looks like a real pretty salmon, right? So that's exciting. All right, so we mentioned the Sea of Akaskt. I'm not saying that correctly. I apologize. Just wanted to give you a pictorial representation of where we're talking about. It's a river flowing into this sea. Now, this site, because if you start, again, I'm coming full circle here, back to why I am assuming or working under an assumption that fly fishing will be in this update. When you start trying to find information about the Yama River or this part of Russia leading into the sea and some of the fishing that comes up, what you find are websites about fly fishing. For the most part, at least so far what I've seen. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but it's very interesting. It's actually talks about some of the specific fish species that they talked about in the development update. Now let's just look at some of these pictures. Pretty cool. All right, so there's some evidence of how fishing does happen there. Guess what? Raft Master. That's encouraging. We'll see. The middle reaches of the Yama is near the mouth. It's darker water, I guess. Very pretty area, though. The valley. The lower reaches, you can see some spruce. Look, it's Belaya. Got our fishing camp set up. Now we get a group of French fishermen that's having dinner in the helicopter. So that's how they got out there. Wow. Here's an older picture, German and Dutch fishermen from '94. There's a fishing lodge at the mouth of the Studenaya River. So again, this same area. It'd be cool if there was a lodge there. We'll see. Lower part of the Yama, mid-October. Bears come for the salmon. Now look at this. 3 species of char. Dolly Varden, the Livendavs, and the white-spotted char. The top one and the bottom one were specifically mentioned in the update, right? So that's pretty cool. See if we got another burbot here. If you're just like dying to know, it's probably a chub though, right? Yeah. If you're just like dying to know, I'm not trying to torture you here. I mean, this is where we are at Octuba. Pretty well-known spot. Supposedly there's been some bellows biting here. We're at 16 clip, fishing with bleak. I don't even know if the weather really supports bellows. Not really. We're wasting our time, but we're just having fun, right? Okay. Dolly Varden char, Livendavs char, and white-spotted char. Yama is one of the streams where you can catch a trophy white-spotted char. So again, I think this is going to be one of the smaller fish compared to some of the other ones. Now here's interesting. Arctic grayling. We've heard of that, right? From the Yama River can be very big. I can't quite make out what I mean, obviously you can see the ruler here. It does look like a pretty large grayling. The most numerous salmon of the drainage is the chum. There's hundreds of thousands of them at some points. So there's the chum, right? We specifically talked about the chum in the update news. Silver male of the coho salmon. Coho is one of the ones, right? Coho salmon. Will there be a variation of the coho salmon that's silver? I don't know, but that's pretty cool. Coho is caught mostly, here we go, big, bright flies. One of the best is the egg-sucking woolly bugger on the number 2 hook. If you're into fly fishing, I mean, that's just like, that's doing it for you right there, isn't it? The Beauty and the Beast. Coho salmon in spawning colors. Look how pretty that fish is. And big. I mean, it's a large fish. All right. Typical fly bot for a Pacific salmon river. How cool is that? This is a side channel of the Yama used by salmon for resting. Just keep this in your mind, by the way. Look at how many flies there are. The complexity of just this little box of someone that would be fly fishing. 3 coho and 2 chum move upstream. So cool. I'm so glad I found this website. By the way, I need to thank flyfishingrussia.com. And this is the article on the Yama River. Do you want to float and fish the Yama? And when they say float, they mean, drift down the river. Not talking about float fishing. in that context at least. Okay, so very cool. Very interesting stuff, and I'm very excited about the update. Okay, so let me get to the Belaya River. How do we get to the water bodies? It's separated by water bodies. I just have to find it. Water bodies, Belaya. I'm going to put on a tinfoil hat here, okay? I think there's a picture of it right at the top, right? Yep, okay. So I mentioned before when Belaya first came out. Oh, did it say what level it is? Level 12. Oh, that's so cool. Does it break down all of them? Yes. Okay, I need to remember that. We can come back to this and we can talk about what level you're going to have to be. Okay, for me, this is just me. When Belaya first came out, it felt flat. Now, here's what I've thought, okay? I thought that when Belaya came out, at some point, fly fishing was dropped. So, in other words, I've been streaming this game since soon after it came to have its English servers, right? Even back in the beginning of that process, one of the older admins who was sort of the go-between between the Russian developers and the U.S. players, the new U.S. English-speaking server, he would come on Discord with me a couple times while I was streaming. And he would let me ask him questions, technical questions about the game, things about like what's coming in the future. And even back then, fly fishing was talked about. So this is my speculation again. A lot of what I'm saying in this video is speculation. Even the fact that fly fishing is coming at all. I could be completely wrong, but my speculation is that fly fishing is something that's been being developed to some degree, planning stage, working on implementation for a long time now. And I just wonder if at some point they decided that they had to split Belaya coming out with fly fishing. And I'm not saying that was like a last minute thing, but just as they were developing new maps in the game, Belaya was something they were working on. I wonder if in the beginning stages of Belaya, if it was intended to come out with fly fishing. Again, I could be completely wrong on this, but that would explain, at least in my mind, why when Belaya first came out, it just didn't feel like it had the same pop for me that most maps do when they come out in RF4. Now, Belaya has aged well. If you go back to how I and others felt about Belaya when it first came out, to how it performs now, it has aged well. People now can hit level 12, and if they're more focused on spin fishing, you can do really well on the cheapest of spinning setups. Fishing for grayling, brown trout, and hoping not to get blown up by an asp or a taimen. So you can do really well there. There's some bottom fishing occasionally, but it's pretty rare. There's lots of good float fishing on this right side, right? So it has aged well. I like Belaya a lot more now than I used to. But how much cooler is Belaya if all of a sudden we're fly fishing? So here's my speculation, that Belaya is now going to be the level 12 map where you first can lean into fly fishing. So whatever level Yama is going to be, the new map, I think that we will be able to fly fish at other places, and I think it will make more sense on spots at Belaya, maybe Tunguska, possibly with winding even. But I think Belaya will be that like lower level fly fishing haven. And, maybe some of the equipment for fly fishing you can purchase will be available at Belaya, but maybe not all of it. Maybe some of it will be held for a higher level, more specialty. So what level do we see Yama coming at? So to me, if working under that assumption that after fly fishing is in the game, one cool place to do it will be Belaya at a lower level, and then Yama will fit in either in sort of a mid-level Volkov range, Volkov to Sura range maybe, or they could see Yama as a high-level place. I don't know that they would go all the way up to Tuaktuba or Tunguska. Is Tunguska not even on this list? Where is Tunguska? Am I just blind? Oh, here it is. So our highest level body of water is the Tunguska River. Do they put Yama above Tunguska? I don't see that. It just depends on how big of a map this is and how much variety of fishing there is. And frankly, it depends on how much XP and silver you can generate doing this type of fishing or whatever is offered at Yama. But my guess is it'll be lower than Tunguska. And again, they could either see it as like a low to mid 20s map, or they could see it as a high level, sort of between Amber and Tunguska, as sort of a specialty fly fishing and whatever else you can do map. So there's my speculation on level. It's impossible to say. Obviously, I'm sure the developers have a plan, have a strategy that fits into them. It makes sense to them wherever they end up putting it. There's not a lot of gaps anymore. So there's not like a space that just stands out like, oh man, we really need something at level whatever. The only downside of putting Yama at 32 or whatever is the percentage of people that can actually play that map. And if you're introducing fly fishing and what you can do with fly fishing at Yama is really special, the downside would be not allowing a larger part of the player base to do that. But I don't know. Again, it just depends on how they envision it and how it ends up working out. So that's my speculation on level. That's also my speculation on what happened with Belaya. I may be completely wrong. I'm curious to hear what others think about that. Could fly fishing have originally been intended to release with Belaya or alongside Belaya, and at some point those two things separated from each other, and Belaya ended up getting pushed out way before fly fishing came. And again, I could be completely wrong. That's just my speculation. So the other thing I just wanted to briefly touch on while I'm speculating here, let's see, we can start putting rods back in the water, and I won't go too much longer, because let's face it, I'm just rambling. But I appreciate you listening, and I really am anxious to hear what your thoughts are. Are you excited? I mean, I can't help but be excited. Anytime new content comes out, I get really excited about it. But here's the other thing I'm wondering. So fly fishing, again, speculation, assumption that fly fishing is coming with Yama. I've never done fly fishing before in my life, but I know people that fly fish. And it's one of those things where people that fly fish become obsessed with it. They love it. Have you ever tried to talk someone who is really into fly fishing to go bass fishing with you? I mean, you can twist their arm. They like being on the water or whatever, but what they really want to do is fly fish. So I guess I'm just saying I hope that fly fishing, the way they implement it in the game, and perhaps this is part of why it's taken so long to get into the game, will somehow be representative of the depth and the attractiveness that fly fishing holds for so many people in the world. And when I think of how they could implement that, I first start thinking about could we add something to making lures, right? Could we have something with tying flies as being a part of lure making? I mean, I think that would be amazing. That would give you something to work on. It would help you kind of feel like you're putting your own slant on it by making your own lures. I really hope that that's a part of it. Is fly fishing going to be its own category? We have float, spin, and bottom. I don't think you can just cram fly fishing into any of these. I mean, that would be a stretch. And so again, tinfoil hat here, I think there's a reasonable chance we're going to get reset of skills. Reasonable. I'm not sure, but I think it's possible. Because I think you've got to do fly fishing as its own thing. I think you would be selling it short to not have it be its own category. And I hope that, when it's first implemented, it's implemented with plenty of different gear variations. Obviously, lots of flies, hopefully some of them handmade, a lot of them store-bought, a lot of them serving different types of purposes. I mean, they could go really far. If you've played the Fisher Online, you know how that game has decided to implement fly fishing. And I just think which is really the case with so many different types of fishing and so many different examples of how they do things in the game, RF4 has the opportunity and will likely go much farther with how they implement fly fishing than how it was done in that game. Although it's promising in the Fish Your Own Line in the sense that it's just fun. The mechanics that they have used in that game are just frankly fun. So I expect it to be fun here, and I expect it to have maybe a level of depth, width and depth that it doesn't have in the Fish Your Own Line. So I'll quit rambling. I'll quit speculating. These were the bleak that didn't make it into bait. We haven't caught a single bellow here, but the weather's not right. And we also were sitting here overnight most of the time. But honestly, I just thought it would be fun to have rods in the water while I was talking, just to make it that a little bit more exciting, because let's face it, talking can get old. But hey, it's exciting, and hopefully in a month or two we'll actually have our hands on the Yama River, and then you can come back and see just how wrong I was on all of the speculation and thoughts about it. But please let me know what you're thinking. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this news today. If you are able to join me tomorrow for the stream or in our in-game chat, MDawg's in-game, I'd love to hear from you either of those places as well on what you're excited about, what your predictions are. And that's going to do it for now. Tight lines, everybody, and I will see you again soon. Peace out.